Hello, chefs. This is Chef's PSA podcast. I'm your host, André Natera. On today's episode, we're going to talk about leadership self-sabotage. Stay tuned. Now, before we get started, if you want to support the show, you know what to do. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe button. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure you leave 5 stars, nothing less than 5 stars. Actually, also Apple or anywhere else. Leave 5 stars regardless. If you bought one of the books, leave 5 stars. Anyway, go to chefspsa.com where you can get everything. You can get the books, Culinary Leadership Fundamentals, which is the most popular one. That's for leaders, chefs. It's the basics of culinary leadership. Then there is for the line Cook Survival Manual. For the strategist, The Kitchen Art of War. For the person that likes fictional narratives, Bad Cooks Everywhere or Bad Sue, Good Chef. And for the strategic thinker, Kitchen Art of War. All those are available at chefspsa.com, as well as there's other books that I have on the website that I give away for free. So the 50 Most Important Chef's PSAs is a longer version. It's kind of an amalgamation of How Not to Be the Biggest Idiot in the Kitchen and Line Cook Survival Manual merged into one with a few extras. It's a better written version. As I got better at writing, I wanted to write that one. Anyway, that's available for free. The audiobook you could get as well. And all the books are available in Spanish. So get free ebooks, you get audiobooks, everything at chefspsa.com. Brand new, hot off the press. Look at that. Beautiful and nice. Just Cook white chef's hat. It's also available in pink and light blue for those of you that like those lighter colors, but I like the white one. Go get it. Also available at chefspsa.com. Anyway, go get this. Beautiful and nice. Listen to the chef. If people don't get that reference, there's a chef on Instagram. Fancy Chef 2013, I think is who it is. And it's this guy, and I'm trying to figure out if he's trolling us all, which I think he is. I secretly think he's a genius. From a marketing perspective, this guy is brilliant, and he's putting on a masterclass in marketing and getting attention. So whether you like him or whether you don't, you can't dismiss this guy's being creative and getting attention. So anyway, that's where the beautiful and nice comes from, for those of you that might be confused on the reference. What prompted this episode? A lot of chefs sabotage themselves. A lot more than you think. And some of it's just stupid self-sabotage. I was thinking about something that happened when I was a chef the other day. So I'm going to share a story with you. I used to work with this chef. And when there were hard things to do on the prep list, they would always delegate the extremely hard, very detailed, highly skilled work to the inexperienced cooks. And when things would go wrong, they had a reason to blame them because they said, well, I delegated it to so-and-so and they didn't know how to do it well, so it's their fault. They always thought that was an excuse to get out of jail, but it wasn't. It was like, well, you're the leader. You're the one that told them to do it. You clearly are not a good leader if you are delegating complicated work to people who it's not within their grasp yet of skill. They don't understand how to use their knife yet, much less this extremely complicated task. Not only that, but you didn't train them on it. You just assumed that they knew. And then when service goes poorly, you blame it on that person. Now, what's interesting about this is the people that do this, they think they're fooling everybody because they think that their poor leadership decisions are going to be noticed as the other person's fault, not their fault. I did what I was supposed to do. I delegated, and they didn't do it right. Therefore, it's their fault. But no one views it that way. They just view it as you're being a bad leader. It's transparent to everyone else but the individual. Some people are completely oblivious to how they're perceived by their team. And they think they fooled everyone when no one's fooled. And there's a lot of self-sabotage in leadership. Sometimes as chefs, we're our own worst enemies. Now, maybe there's a chef on your team that's doing this. Maybe you're the one doing it. Typically, self-sabotage is caused by poor delegation, micromanaging, inability to trust team members, poor communication. Poor communication is one of the worst, right? You expect everyone to know how to do it and you haven't trained anyone how to do it. There's that self-sabotage of you haven't given anyone in the kitchen recipes on how to do anything, but you expect them all how to do it. I did a podcast a few back with Robert Salatiki, and he talks about using recipes and how he's a big believer in consistent down to the gram recipes. Now, I am too. Earlier on in my career, I was much the same, where sometimes I would have recipes and sometimes I wouldn't. As long as you knew how to cook and make it taste good, that's okay. And I prided myself on making sure I trained people how to cook. But the reality is there needs to be a starting point. I mean, really think about this. You have two cooks in the same room. Both of them don't know you and it's their first day on the job, regardless of how skilled they are. You tell them to do something. One person you just say, make this. The other person you say, make this and here's a recipe. Who do you think is going to get closer to the desired result? I mean, it's obvious the person with the recipe will get closer to what you want, whether it's a loosely written recipe or a very precise to the gram recipe. Starting out with something is better than starting out with nothing. The lack of communication just doesn't go with recipes. It goes with schedules. It goes with not knowing how many reservations you have on, when the menu changes. I mean, this drives me crazy. I sometimes consult with places and like they're changing the menu and no one else knows that the menu's changing. Hey, the new menu goes live tonight. Does anyone know? No, we haven't told anyone. It's like, we're flipping the menu tonight and no one knows. They're walking in blind with completely new dishes. There's no recipes. No one knows what they're doing. It blows my mind. Some restaurants operate like that, flying by the seat of their pants. Drives me crazy. I can't do that. Think about your staff. They're walking in thinking that they're prepping for yesterday's menu, and then they walk in and then they get handed a menu. Sometimes it's just a menu. Like I've seen this, it drives me crazy. It's not even a recipe book or how the dish is done. It's a menu and say, here's the new dish. And they're just supposed to figure it out, right? You can't operate like that and think you're setting yourself up and your team for success. And then when it goes bad, you're going to blame the line cook as the chef, the person who handed them the new menu the day that it's changing and telling them, we have a new menu today, and they don't know anything about it. They've never seen the dish. They've never tasted it. They've never cooked it, but it's their fault. Not yours. It's their fault. Not you who didn't plan it correctly, didn't tell anybody. It's the person who's supposed to cook it and know how to execute it to your vision's fault. Got it. Like, that is the best example of self-sabotage. And then it goes wrong and you blame them, right? And then you get pulled into the office. The owner's mad at you. And what do you say? Oh, well, it was their fault. You have no system in place. Systems and processes are going to prevent this from happening. Good communication. Is it a group chat? Are you working off of Trello, right? Do you guys have email? However it is that you communicate, you need to communicate information. One of the things that I used to do is whenever I would change a recipe, I would always put the date next to it, revised on this date, just in case there was ever any confusion if multiple recipes were out there floating. You have the revised date, so you know when the latest update is. So if there was ever any doubt, it's written down. There's also self-sabotage and hiring the wrong people, hiring someone with no experience, putting them in a position that's complicated. They've never worked in a kitchen before. It's their first job ever, and you put them on the grill on a Friday night, and then they fail. You say, well, you never cooked a steak before? I mean, what do you think? Well, I mean, like, really, what do you think? Do you think a 0-day line cook is going to be able to handle Friday night service on the busiest station? Well, then they shouldn't have applied here. No, maybe you shouldn't have hired them. Maybe you should have trained them properly. That is self-sabotage leadership. It's everyone else's fault. It's never your fault. It's always their fault. But the reality is, everyone knows. You think you fooled people, no one's fooled. Setting unrealistic expectations is tough for everybody. Is the menu too complicated? Are there too many menu items, right? You give them a prep list that is unrealistic for anybody to finish, even a competent chef. And then you get upset why things are not done on time. And then you say, well, I could do it. Well, could you? Really? Could you do it when you were a year one cook? Maybe you could do it now, but could you do it when you had no experience? Or sometimes you'll even write things and say, well, I could do it. Well, really, could you though? Ask yourself that question. Prove it. Because sometimes when you've been a chef too long, you do get a little bit detached from reality. You live in the glory days of how good you used to be when you were a line cook, and then you jump on the line and you realize maybe you weren't that good as you remembered. I mean, how many chefs do you know out there, like all joking aside, how many chefs do you know out there? And every cook that's listening, you're like, yeah, that's my chef. Like they haven't jumped on the line gets busy, they jump in, and then the cooks are like, we got it, get out of the way, because they're like, the fish is stuck and they're like scraping the pan with their Peltex spatula and ripping up the skin. They're testing the steak and it's way overdone. Say, no, that's perfect medium. And they slice it and they put it up and they're like, no, it's perfect. And they know it's wrong and you know it's wrong, but you can't say nothing. And the chef's looking at you like, no, this is true medium. And you know they're full of shit. Have you ever seen that happen? I've seen it happen. I probably did it. Then there's the micromanaging chef, the one who tries to manage every single detail, stifles creativity, doesn't listen to anybody, refuses to get input from the other chefs in the kitchen, will continue going down the wrong road, even at the team begging, don't do that. It's bad for all of us. Nope, we're going down this road. And then it goes poorly, and everyone's like, the whole team saw it, right? They all knew. It's like the Pied Piper, leading everyone off a cliff. They all knew it was going to happen, but you led them. And then it's like, oh, it's not my fault. I didn't know. Well, yeah, you did know, because everyone was telling you not to do that, but you didn't listen. Then there's the leaders that just don't embrace anything new. They're afraid to change. They don't want to adapt. This is the way I've always done it. This is the way my chef showed me and their chef showed me. This is the way it's always been done. We're not going to adapt to the new way. I'm not going to turn on the computer. I'm not going to use AI. I'm not going to use YouTube. I refuse to use this tool versus that tool. In the old days, we whisked our hollandaise. We don't put it in the blender or a deli cup. We don't make mayonnaise that way. We always make it this way. You don't sous vide meat. You do sous vide meat. Like whatever the case may be, whatever your particular kitchen says is the right way to do it, there might be a more efficient way to do it. I'd challenge you to look at that. Like, is there a more efficient way to do what you've been doing in your kitchen already? Think about it. Maybe there's someone in your kitchen that knows a better way. Now, I know I often say like Chef PSA 101, no one cares how you did it at the last job. I get that. There's a time and place for that. But occasionally, you should step back and you should look at your operation, because you may have micromanaged yourself into a position of it being very inefficient. And you need to ask your team, is there a better way to do this? Because someone on your team might know a different method that just doesn't want to speak up, right? Just because it's the way something has always been done, or that's the way you've always done it, doesn't mean it's the most efficient way. I like to say strong opinions held together very loosely. So I have a strong opinion about something, but it's held together loosely. If you show me a better way, I'm willing to change my mind. And I think people should adopt that mentality. There's also self-sabotage psychologically. Your fear of failure might be preventing you to try new things because you're paralyzed with fear that you don't want to fail. So you play it really safe versus taking risks when you need to take risks or creating action when things aren't going well. The fear is paralyzing you to act. And sometimes you just have to act to get results. There's a lot of talk these days about imposter syndrome. And people ask me like, hey, have you ever had imposter syndrome? And I kind of laugh because I said jokingly, and I know this sounds really bad, but I'll say, I think I have the opposite, because I don't ever look at anything say, I can't do that. I look at things that might be very complicated that I know I shouldn't try and do it, but like, that looks easy, I could do it. I mean, like starting a podcast. How hard could it be? Writing a book, how hard could it be? That's kind of the way I look at things. Like, how hard could it be? If they could do it, I could do it. They're human, I'm human, right? We both got a brain. I'm sure I could figure it out. Anyway, but I know a lot of people do have it. And sometimes with imposter syndrome, you overcompensate because you want to prove that you're the right person for the job or that you have the culinary ability to do it. So you overcompensate and you punch above your weight when you're not ready. And you take your team down this journey as the leader. And you're setting them up for failure, because if you're not ready, they're not ready. So how do you overcome some self-sabotage? First and foremost, know yourself, know your team, know your strengths, know your weaknesses, know theirs as well. Really analyze what you do. Look at what works and what doesn't. Don't be afraid to look at other operations and see what they're doing well and how you can incorporate some good best practices into your own culinary operation. Ask for feedback. Like, you have cooks in your kitchen, ask for feedback. Is there a better way to do this? Do you know another way to do this? I like to say, what's the most efficient, shortest way to get the most delicious result? The shortest path to get the most delicious result is probably what you need to be looking at, and you need to be finding those things in your kitchen, those operational efficiencies. If we do this, we could get there faster and more precisely, right? The shortest path to get to the most efficient, delicious result. That should be your mantra. Obviously, leadership training, mentoring, coaching, read books, open your mind, think differently. No one knows it all. As I like to say when I was in the kitchen, one of us is not better than all of us. It's not my saying, I stole it from one of my chefs, but I thought it was pretty good. One of us is not better than all of us, right? The collective, there's greater intelligence in the collective. Build your team up, build their skills up, build their confidence up. The better they are, the better you are. Don't give the green line cooks assignments and tasks that they're not ready for gradually increase the difficulty setting with them, help them grow, right? If you're in a position to do that, and I get it. Some kitchens are like, nope, we got to be ready day one. I get it. But spend some time with them. Don't just throw them into the lion's den and expect them to survive. I always say, get a mentor, strengthen your network of chefs, your chef circle, invite them in, let them see what you're doing, be open to criticism, be open to being wrong. I think that, like, if you could take one big lesson from this, be open to being wrong, and that maybe what you're doing might not be the right way. Find the most efficient way. Be humble enough to know that you don't know everything. Anyway, if you want to support the show, you know what to do. Make sure you leave 5 stars, nothing less than 5 stars. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe button. Go to chefspsa.com where you can get everything, all the books, all the merch. If you want exclusive content, subscribe to my Substack. I'm going to link them in the show notes. We have early access to episodes, plus exclusive episodes, and a whole lot more. We'll see you next week. Go get this hat. Beautiful and nice. See you next week. Hit the porno music.
Yo, it's André in the kitchen, mixing, dropping chef knowledge, no fiction, stirring up the beats, heating up the session. Listen close, classes in session.